Welcome to the Wednesday, October 8th, regular meeting of the Board of Education. Tonight, we've got a special treat. We've got the Girl Scout Daisy Troop, number 2411, that's going to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance tonight. So, girls, I'll ask you to come up here, lead the group in the Pledge of Allegiance. In addition, once standing, please remain standing for a moment of silence. And tonight, we honor a longtime Sachem teacher who recently passed away, Mr. Thomas Mangello.
Remember, right hand, wrong hand. Wrong hand. Okay, ready? Want to start it, Marco? Want to start it? All right.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic where it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, girls. Fantastic job. And if I didn't mention, this troop is from Cayuga and Winona. So thank you, girls, for coming out tonight. Okay, at this point, we'll turn it over to Mrs. Trombetta for the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Wonderful job, girls, and thank you so much for coming. Before I pass it over to Brent to do the auditor's presentation, I just want to acknowledge yesterday we had an incredible kindergarten senior walk, our second year of doing this tradition, and it couldn't have been possible without Liz and Kelly at North and Jay at Sioux at East. So I just want to thank them and thank the community for coming out and supporting that event. And also I want to acknowledge this past Sunday, we were at the marching band home show, and our marching band did a phenomenal job. They placed second, and they put on an incredible show for all of us. So I just want to acknowledge that. I'd like to invite Brent up right now, Brent Jensen, to do our auditor's presentation.
Thank you. I am Brent Jensen. I'm a partner with EFPR Group. We are the independent auditing firm that performed the financial statement audit for the current fiscal year. This presentation is going to be kind of split into two parts. There's kind of an administrative part of the performance of the audit, and then a financial results part that I'm going to go into after that. So from the administrative side, we expect to issue clean or unmodified opinions on your financial statements, as well as your federal compliance audit, or commonly called single audit, and your extra classroom activities reports. For your federal compliance audit, in the current year, the major program that was selected was the special education program, and there were no findings in our testing. For the extra classroom activities, we once again performed expanded sampling at the request of the audit committee based on prior risks that had been determined. And even with that expanded sampling, we had no issues to report, no findings, nothing that is in any way reportable. Our audits were performed in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards and governmental auditing standards. When you perform in accordance with governmental auditing standards, you also report on internal controls. We do not issue an opinion on internal controls, but we do certain internal control work in relation to government auditing standards. And should we have found any issues with those internal controls, we would report potentially a material weakness or significant deficiency. There were no material weaknesses or significant deficiencies to report. Our audit was also performed in accordance, financial statements were also prepared in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So administratively, everything is exactly as you would hope. You've got a great team here that does a great job throughout the year and provides us everything that we need to perform the audit efficiently and to get everything to you on time for the state deadlines and in a very clean manner. So that's all great news. The financial results side of this, I'm going to preface with kind of a little look back to where we were a year ago. In this meeting, along with the audit committee meeting last year, and I will also say that I met with your audit committee a week ago to discuss this report. We talked significantly about what the financial trends of the district were. and about what that meant for your ability to budget going forward in the future. This year turned out better than could have been expected based on the budget that was put in place for the year. You still have a $1 million loss of fund balance, but you had budgeted for a significantly larger loss of fund balance than that. I'll get into why in a minute. That's great news in terms of the district's abilities right now. However, you're not in a substantially different overall picture right now than you were a year ago. You have once again appropriated a significant amount of your fund balance to fund this coming year, 2025-2026 budget. And it would only be through similar management tactics, finding every dollar throughout the year that you can raise in additional revenue and cut in additional expenditures, that you could hope to have similar results again. Additionally, there are some things that may not happen again, just based on the current economic trends as well. For example, your budget revenue ended up being actually an overrun of $4.9 million in actual revenue versus that budget this year. Significant parts of that were caused by the fact that your what's called use of money or property, or it's really your interest income, was $1.8 million over budget. Interest rates are dropping right now. That's not expected to be repeatable. Additionally, you did have $1.3 million that was over budget in relation to what's called miscellaneous, and that related to disbursements from your BOCES. Those are uncertain items that you don't know what you can expect year to year and should not be expected to be repeatable either. So that's more than $3 million in additional revenue. You also did have expenditures under budget by $8.3 million. That was the hard work of your management team that resulted in that. There were a number of difficult choices made. The most significant savings was in the area of employee benefits, which is about $3 million under budget. That doesn't just happen. That's something where your team has made a lot of choices about what positions really need to be filled and made a lot of cuts in that manner throughout the year. And that's a lot of hard decisions that got you to that point. So in terms of your general fund at year end, you ended up with revenues of $366.6 million against expenditures of $358.5 million. You also made additional net transfers of $9.1 million to other funds, most of which came in the form of a $9 million transfer to the capital projects fund based on capital projects that were approved by your voters. All of that resulted in the $1 million decrease to fund balance that I had previously talked about in your general fund, and left you with a total fund balance of $55.2 million. To give some insight into what's in that number, you had what's called a signed fund balance of $12.5 million. When you assign fund balance, you've already put it in the next year's budget. That fund balance is already essentially used as far as this board is concerned. You have what's called restricted fund balance of $29.8 million. Those restrictions are in a number of different areas, but they're there for certain reasons. As a couple examples of the types of things that restricted fund balance represents, you have what's called an employee benefit reserve. You use that to pay down, usually the most common thing is retirement incentives. You know you have significant future retirement incentive payments coming to your teachers that will be retiring. So that reserve is important because you're not going to be able to fund those significant incentives if they all come at once out of your annual budget. You need to have money in that reserve to cover that. Similarly, there are reserves in relation to your retirement payments you make for the statewide systems for the employee retirement system and teachers retirement system. Those reserves are there because sometimes the state will look to balance issues that they have on the backs of the school districts, and will raise rates substantially in times of financial difficulty. We saw this happen for about a 3 to 4 year period back during the 2008 to 2011 times when we had some significant financial difficulties in this nation. We saw them approximately double that rate If they double those rates, you have nowhere to find that in your yearly budget, except for taking it from these reserves. So when you look at $29.8 million in reserves, it's a substantial balance. It makes the district healthy today, but they're there for a reason. And then beyond that, the other source of significant fund balance is what's called unassigned. The state limits you to 4% of your next year's budget that can be carried forward as unassigned fund balance. You have $12.7 million in that balance right now, which represents 3.33% of the next year's budget. Not too far off from that 4% number, which is a good thing, but you really want to be up to that 4% as much as possible. Just to put into context of what that 12.7 million really means to the district, keep in mind that when you're talking about a budget that is more than $360 million, and you're talking about operating approximately 160 school days, you're talking about spending more than $2.25 million per school day. So you're really only talking about 1 week of operations reserved there in that unassigned fund balance. So overall, it was a good financial year for your general fund in that it came in much better than the initial expectation. But the work is far from done, and you need to find every method you can to try and repeat the success of this year again. Otherwise, the money will simply not be there to appropriate next year and repeat a budget like this. Any questions on that financial picture?
I'll open it up to the board for questions.
Yeah, hi, Brent. First, yes, as he mentioned, last week we did meet at the audit committee met. He provided this presentation. It was well attended. Myself, Ms. Schrenk was there. Ms. Slattery was there, and so was Mrs. Roberts, for the prior board members, and several members of the community. So first, thanks for your work. We've seen you a number of years now, and thank you for the compliments to our staff here. I mean, they do. We have a great crew here, and they do a great job. But so the picture you're painting, though, is kind of the analogy of the Titanic sinkings, right? We're taking in 10,000 gallons of water. We were able to start a pump that pumps out 5,000. So we slowed the descent, but we're still in the wrong trajectory, right? That's the picture you're painting.
Yes, I would say that you still have a significant long-term issue to resolve. You do not have budgets right now that can be expected to be sustainable at their current levels. If you continue to use fund balance through appropriations and eventually lose that fund balance year over year, you cannot continue to appropriate fund balance that does not exist at some point.
And you had made a point about things that we were able to do, management was able to do, and allowances we were able to provide. One of those things was we didn't fill all the staff positions, right? Mm-hmm. Because we allowed the class sizes to go up. So the community needs to realize we had to make that decision, but of course that's manifesting now in larger class sizes, which isn't. Those who are educators on this board certainly don't think that's a good idea, and neither does anybody else. But we had to do what we had to do, right? One of the things I get concerned with in your presentation, and I don't think many people in the community realize it, we realize it. I kind of look at this as the start of our budgeting season now. You provide this report. This report is really basically a snapshot of how we ended on June 30th, and now we roll over into July 1st. And I'm glad you made the point of saying that the $12 million that we already appropriated for this school year now is out of that fund balance. We really don't have $56 million. We really have 44, right?
Essentially, yes.
And I contend, and I think you were alluding to the fact that that number should have been lower, but for revenues we were not expecting, could not have planned for, like the BOCES aid. Those are one-time things that just rolled down into that fund balance. Had we not had those, we would have been short probably $4 million, right, rather than $1 million. So yes. You can't rely on that. It's things happened this year that we can't rely on to repeat. So we need to take other actions. And I think we're doing that. We're proactively doing that. The gentleman's going to talk about our state of our district over the next coming years and things we should be able to do to save money. So I have concerns, and I know that this body did allocate reserves to fund day-to-day operations, which I think as a practice is not what you would suggest, right? We should not be using reserves to fund day-to-day operations. Is that?
Yeah, I think ideally you would not. I will make a caveat that you are not alone as a district in the state by any means right now. This is actually a situation that I'm seeing become a little bit more common amongst school districts. The reality is with the 2% property tax cap and with the way state aid has been growing very slowly over the past few years, except for districts that had significant demographic or enrollment changes, most districts are seeing very, very slow revenue growth and are seeing that expenditure growth is outpacing revenue growth. Your situation might be a little bit more stark at a glance if for no reason other than your numbers are larger than a lot of districts' numbers. But it also means it takes a lot more tough decisions when the numbers are larger to get an impact that matters.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because that's where I was heading next. Is that, and you've mentioned this before, even in the audit committee meeting, and I hope you'll repeat it again. Is that, we only have certain sources of revenue. We don't, we use taxpayer dollar. We get revenue, and the revenue is in the form of state aid, property taxes, our own small amount of miscellaneous income from rentals, et cetera. And then of course, whatever we appropriate fund balance, right? Those are like the four main components. My contention, of course, is that and maybe you can validate my contention, is that for the expenses that we have that we control, or we have the most control over, let's say that would be contract negotiations to the largest extent. I think, and I've said this many times, we have, between ourselves, this board, our bargaining units, we have really controlled those expenses, and that represents almost half our budget. But other things are out of our control, right? Other expenses, our TRS contribution, those increases, our ERS contributions. But we are kind of stymied in how we can raise revenue, right? We can't, if we want to stay within the property tax cap, we're basically stuck at 2% of the previous year tax levy, right?
Yes. So I think it was said in the audit committee, and it's an important point, that of your revenue, about 94% of your revenue comes from only two sources.
Right.
It comes from state aid, which you have absolutely zero control over. And as I just said, growth has been very slow on, probably in the 1% to 2% range per year, the vast majority of recent years. The other major source is property taxes that, as you said, are limited to 2% by state law for growth unless you pierce the tax cap, which requires a supermajority vote, which I know there was an attempt here that did fail previously to do so.
Well, again, I've always had the contention, and this group knows it, that we really don't have a expense problem. We have a revenue problem. Our expenses, especially the ones that we control, don't really grow. And I think you showed this. Our expenses are up like 0.4%, if I remember the number.
I would have to.
Yeah, I have to look back, but it was small. It was low, but our revenue doesn't grow. Or maybe our revenue grows 0.4 and our expenses grow 3 or something like that. You had shown, I don't have the report in front of me. I forgot it.
I would say most districts I'm seeing now, I'm generally seeing numbers that are probably revenue growth of about 1 to 1.5% in most places. And it's very difficult to achieve an expenditure growth that really gets under about a 2% rate, even just based on the contractual realities of what you have out there in terms of the CBAs.
Do you see on other school districts this problem was exacerbated when inflation was much higher?
Yeah, I think that this is absolutely something where the inflation kind of started an issue or exacerbated in some cases an issue that was starting to exist, along with the fact that really as you mentioned, the revenue growth has been so small for a number of years now. So the reality is districts that were in good financial shape have watched it slowly deteriorate. A lot of districts are like you, where their financial health from the fund balance side is fine. It's that revenue and expenditure trend line that is a blinking sign, just future concern.
Meredith? Thank you, Mike. Questions?
So thank you, Brent. I appreciate this. And thank you to Michelle's department, because you guys do work really, really hard to keep our expenses at bay. So fortunately, but unfortunately, we had rates were high. So that gave us some extra income from the interest rates, which will not be there if rates go low. Now, if rates go low, that's great for most Americans, but it will take away from us. On top of that, the great work that Michelle's department did cannot be something that can be done year after year. There were some savings that she was able to find, But, it's kind of like here and there. I don't think that we're going to be able to see the same great savings year over year that we've been seeing. So I just want to kind of put that out there, because when you say that we have done such a great job, then some people in the community only hear that part. And then they expect that year over year. And unfortunately, that's not something that's going to be a possibility. On top of that, we have, like you said, the revenue that we have, the reserves that we have sounds like a lot. And there are people that will run out there and say, oh my God, you have all this money. You keep our money. You hold our money. It's $1,000 per household, blah, 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 blah. And at the end of the day, it is, what did you say? 1 week of operations. So
the unassigned is about 1 week.
Right.
That's specifically unassigned.
Right. The other ones we kind of were scared to even think about, because was it 2 years ago or 3 years ago that like our benefits went crazy, some stuff that we had no control over, our just the percentages that we pay, like it was over $1 million in a day in the health insurance. Like we just woke up one day and boom, we owed 1 point something more $1 million we had no control over.
Well,
And
a
that's-
couple of years ago, health insurance went
Right.
up several years in a row by double digits.
Right.
And that's $43 million of our budget right there.
Yeah. So these are things that we, you can't say, oh, there's that reserves there. And so I want people to really grasp that 1 week of operation in this school district. That's scary. It's very scary. So while it sounds like we did a great job, and you did do a great job, there's some scary stuff here, and we have to realize that. And, I've never been 100% on board with Mike. And I've made that known, but no, I love you, Mike. But I really do start to believe that Mike's been onto something. I don't know that we should have pierced the cap at the rate that we were supposed to, but I do feel like we definitely are going to need to look at something like that. And I just wanted to put that out there as somebody who never was a believer, that I'm starting to believe that we really need to do something.
Thanks, Meredith. Steph?
The only concern I have listening to this is that we're not really in better shape, because we already are down 13 million, right? We were down 1 million plus 12.5, right? So we're at 13.5 million down negative. The hemorrhage could have been worse. So that's the good news. But the bad news is we're still operating at a 13.5 deficit, right?
The
Is that the way?
current year was a $1 million deficit. You were expecting a deficit in about the same area we're talking this year, somewhere in I think it was probably 11, 12 million. You're kind of expecting, if the budget had fully been realized as it was built. The reality is it's unlikely you're going to spend every single dollar in your budget, but it's also likely you are going to spend probably a greater percentage of it this year than you did last year. Just knowing that everything that was done last year to make that work, and how some of those things were already built into the budget this year and are not repeatable as an additional savings this year.
So, Mike, to follow up with that, we're already taking out of reserves.
Yes.
So that's the crux to the issue, is we can't raise taxes to replenish the reserves. So if we keep operating at this 13.5 or 12.5 deficit, we're going to constantly be chipping away at reserves at some level.
Yes, you would. Absolutely. You'd have no choice but to take it out of reserves. And that is the position that this district got to once before, that I remember, that really put the board in a very difficult position of having to close 3 schools kind of all at once, just to get back on some level footing and have the ability to even run the district and not end up with the state coming in and taking over.
Yeah, I'll even suggest that if it's not even chipping away, it's pulling out massive amounts of money, and we're going to go to zero real quick.
Yeah,
So,
you
Absolutely, yeah.
You only have a few years.
Yeah,
You can
Mike?
even do this.
Brent, I just want to clarify a little bit. You said something that another thing people might hang their hat on. You said it's unlikely you're going to spend your entire budget. Okay, that's true every year.
Yes.
But I don't think this is like budgeting, that this is not like you do at your home and how you do your home budget. People have to understand that right now, Michelle is trying to calculate what we expect to spend like 18 months from now, right? She's trying to figure out how much snow we're going to have. right? How much money do I need for overtime for snow? There are things you have to put in. You need $1 of revenue for every dollar you expect to spend, right? Whether you spend that expected dollar or not, you have to have $1 of revenue for every dollar you expect to spend, right?
Yes.
So, but people have to understand that, yeah, in 360, what's our budget? 372, right? 37? Yeah, 380. Okay, so what are the odds of hitting $380 million, right? It's 1 in 380 million, I guess, right?
Right.
But you can't overrun your budget. That's exceptionally bad, right? So you're going to have to concede there's always, people have to concede there's always going to be some money left over. You know, we seem to hit within about 2%, maybe between 3 and 2.
Yeah.
That's pretty good budgeting that you're doing, you know, now. People have to understand when you said you won't spend anything, that's irrelevant to the conversation of constructing the budget.
Right. And I will also emphasize that we're talking about an $8.5 million underrun this year, which was a great year. That was a lot of hard work to hit that number, an absolutely great year. And that still represents about a 2.5% savings off the budget.
Right. So,
So your best case scenario might be 2.5%.
right. So
Steph and then Meredith.
So now I'm getting confused because we're still $1 million under, right?
Yeah,
So
you're
if we're using
yes.
the 8.5 million is a good thing, but we're still $1 million under, we really don't have 8.5 million. We just happen to have less. We
Less
didn't
loss.
have 9 million instead of 8 million, right? Or instead of 8 million, so 1 million. So yes, that's lucky, but we're still in the negative. So I don't want the community to think we got overrun with money. We just got lucky that we didn't. It wasn't. We lost less. Yeah, that's a good way to put it, because we have to explain this to people like me. People like you and Michelle totally get what's going on. People like me are not a numbers person, and at home now I have to try to answer people. Well, it was only $1 million, but it's not. It's really, thank God, not 9 million.
Right.
Plus an already anticipated 12.5.
So
I got
it's, yep. It's basically, to kind of put it in another sense that's not a numbers sense, it's a slow bleed that you have right now rather than bleeding out all at once, but you're still bleeding.
Meredith.
So one of the things that I appreciate you saying is how other districts are having similar problems. And of course, there's not many districts that deal with the kind of money numbers that we deal with. And as a matter of fact, one of the districts that would deal with these type of numbers is flush with cash, too much. But I think it's important for the public to understand, and if you have to go back and look at our presentations, Michelle did a presentation a couple board meetings ago about unfunded mandates. So we had a $12 million deficit that we took out of reserves, and we have over $30 million in unfunded mandates. So we have almost triple the money that we're sitting here talking about in unfunded mandates from the government. So these are things, you know, when you say all the other school districts are feeling it, they're feeling it because we're all having the same thing coming down from the governor. We're all having the same issues. And so I want people to really continue to hear that unfunded mandates. It's a huge, huge issue, not just for Sachem, but for all of the districts, well, most of them. So it's really something that's very important because, yeah, we would be flush with cash if we didn't have $30 million that we have to pay for absolutely no reason that we don't get any money back on. We don't get any aid back on it.
Great. Any other questions? Great. Okay. Thank you very much. I always appreciate this because I think, as Mike said, it's the start of budget season. And this is really like cold water in the face. So we've got our work cut out for us yet again. I want to thank the administration for doing what they did. The last 2 seasons have been a tough budget season, and we're in for an even tougher one this year. So thank you for this. And I would just urge the community, these will be posted up on our website, to look at these, read them. Not everybody's an accountant, but I think they can read through it and sort of, get a sense as to what you're talking about, because we do get accused of not getting audited, but by law we are audited every year, and it's significant. I think your report's all like 80 pages, right?
It's something like
So
that, yes.
yeah, plus the summary. So I would suggest the community go out and read it. If you have any questions, send it into the board and we'll try to get answers for you. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Frank.
All right. Thank you.
I'd like to invite Mr. Huber up now.
Michelle, I think.
Just
Michelle-
one thing, I want the board to know that there is a resolution on the agenda tonight to adopt the financial statements. It's in business items, item B.
Thank you.
And Ross, if you'd like to come up and present the demographer's report, please.
Hey, Michelle, can you just go to recap, right? So just, again, maybe people are just tuning in. We've got a demographer. Can you just set the stage as to what we're going to hear?
Absolutely. So Mr. Haber was engaged by the district in the spring to do a demographic enrollment projection attendance zone study for us to see utilization of our buildings and feasibility of either redistricting or possibly closing a building or something. You know, he's working on his study now. And this is just his second update. He's been working, walking our buildings, and this is just to provide an update of where we are with the data gathering.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, everybody. Before I say anything, I walked through 13 of your buildings, okay? And what strikes me about every one of them is how well maintained they are. I've been in a lot of school districts, and this is really at the top rung of maintenance. So I think that your maintenance crew, your maintenance staff really deserves a pat on the back. It was a joy to be in the buildings. Okay. So my purpose tonight is to update you as to where we are in this study. We have a goal that we will meet of having a final presentation to the board in November with a final presentation in December. We're on track to meet that. So process is a process, and we're currently in the process. And what I want to do tonight is just go quickly through where we are. I have no conclusions. I am not making any recommendations. I am not fueling any rumors tonight. So I'm just kind of telling you exactly where we're at in this project. So again, for those of you who may not be, am I on with this thing? We should win.
Where do we point?
Well, I've got my own pointer, but I mean, it's
She'll do it. So if
Oh,
you just point to
point to
Allison,
you.
she'll-
Okay, great. Okay. Don't hit me if I hurt you. Okay. So this is the scope, the original scope of the project. The original scope of the project is, first of all, as a baseline, to provide an updated enrollment projection and demographic study to take a look 5 and 10 years out into the future of what your enrollment will be. As a cautionary tale, after 5 years, reliability of projections goes down, but they are good information, but not things to make long-term decisions on based on 10 years out. But do you know that? As of right now, we've completed the projections. However, because the official enrollment date in New Jersey is October 15th, we'll get one more file from Michelle on the 15th to make sure that all the numbers are absolutely up to speed. I'm sorry? Yeah. Oh, did I say New Jersey? I'm sorry. I had trauma because I drove from New Jersey to here today, and you know, Long Island traffic. So, but anyway, anyway, so we will be getting we'll get the bed's latest data, which was completed last week, and we'll just update the files based on the bed's report. Okay. Then what we want to do, once we make these projections, we want to incorporate those projections into the current building facilities, the current instructional space, to say, okay, this is the amount of space you're using now. Looking at 5 years, this is what the space is going to look like. Okay, how much capacity do you have? How many classrooms do you have? What are your average class sizes going to look like? Where do you want them to be? So that would be the second part of this. And then the last part of this is the feasibility study. And the feasibility study gives us some things to really consider. Do we move attendance zones to balance out enrollments? Is that the solution? Okay, is it possible to close the school and redistribute that enrollment? Again, we don't know that yet because we've not completed that part of the study. We're still on looking at the facilities to see what kind of space that we have. And then finally, as I said, if feasible, would it be possible to close one or more buildings? And I don't know, because we haven't come to that kind of conclusion yet. So I think that's important to keep in mind that, again, we're in the data analysis portion of this thing, and we're not ready to make conclusions. So again, as I said, the expected outcomes are finally a 10-year projection broken into 5 and 10-year segments, an analysis of current cohort cohort migration across the grades. It's simply tracking how kids move from grade to grade. What kind of average difference there is between third grade, fourth grade, and fifth grade. The changes maybe in kindergarten enrollment, and the way we project kindergarten enrollment is to take a look at the existing enrollments each year in kindergarten and average them against children born 5 years earlier. So we get a 5-year average to project kindergarten enrollments moving ahead. We also, in terms of our projections, consider things like new housing. I'll talk a little bit about the projected housing in the district, and I'll talk about that in a minute. So where are we? Okay, so far we have collected our student data. Students have been geocoded to the map. They will be updated based upon the October 1st enrollments. We'll get that this week from Michelle from the district. We geocode the kids by matching them to addresses. For security reasons, we have no names of. I want to be clear to the community, you guys. We don't have children's names. We only have student numbers. So there's no confidentiality that can be hacked or exposed in any child, because the data files do contain a lot of information. They including special needs, grade levels, those kinds of things. So the only way they can be identified is through student numbers. At some point when we make changes, the district will have to translate those into the names of students who may be affected by this change. But right now, we're not working with that. As I said, we've done school visitations. So on here it says the elementary schools. Today I completed by going through each of the middle schools. So we've done all the K-8 visitations. And then we've done preliminary projections. Again, they're going to be updated. We've done them by district and by school. They'll be updated by the beds enrollment as of October 1st. And we've had each principal fill out a survey to kind of tell us what goes on in their school building. Because we look at floor plans, we look at enrollment. We also want to get the principal's perspective on what goes on in the building, so we can kind of get a good feel for the school building. Each school building is its own culture, and we need to understand that a little bit. And as a retired school principal, I have to do that. Okay, it's just part of the code. So we've done that. We're continuing to do it. Now here, okay, I want to just take a look a little bit at where we've been. I know these numbers probably kind of hard for the district. The district has gone through considerable enrollment decline. In the year 2011, in the 2011-12 school year, the total number of students in the district was 14,712. Okay, as of this September, the enrollment was 11,499, meaning that in that period, there was a significant decline in enrollment. More significantly, is that in that period of time, your elementary schools declined by 1,582 students. Now, in the 2011-12 school year, you had 12 elementary schools. Subsequent to that, you've closed 2 of the elementary schools. So if we look at what the numbers were in that year in the elementary schools and what they are now, we're looking at a difference in enrollment of 582 students. In other words, there are 582 students who existed in the 12 schools that I'm sorry, they're not going to say this correctly. Okay. You've declined in the elementary schools by 1,582 students. The 2 elementary schools that closed had about 1,000 students between them, which means that there are 582 students left over from that number. If we look at that number, we have an average of the current existing enrollment of just under 500 students per school. That kind of 500, we have an average of 50 students per elementary school across the district, which tells us that we should have additional space in each elementary school, considering programs and everything else. So those the kinds of things that drive our data. Taking a look at how many kids exist, what the capacity of each of the buildings are vis-a-vis instructional space and special programs to the district, and we'll calculate that. And we don't know. We're not willing to make that statement quite yet, but we do believe there's excess capacity in the school district. It also kind of makes sense that if your enrollment goes down significantly, it's probably going to create space. And that's what, and we've taken a look at that in terms of have additional programs come come onto the district in the last 15 years. We talk about unfunded mandates and things like that. So we want to see what those differences are between what they were when there was this many kids in the school building and when the current and on the current enrollment. So based on that, okay, so what this next table is, and again, very hard to see, this is the actual projection based upon the most recent enrollment data. The area without color, that's enrollment history. And the area that's green is the projection out to 2030-31. Just examples of, okay, the elementary schools had 5,129 students in 2019-20 and opened this year with 4,963. The total of the middle schools was 2,922 in the 2019-20 year, and it's 2,637 now. So there was some decline there. High school, 4,200, now down to 3,900. And I think the next slide might give you a better picture. Okay. Okay, this slide, okay, shows the enrollment history and projection from the base year of the study, which is 2019 and 20. So in 2019-20, there were 12,238 students in the district. In 2025, the current school year was down to 11,523, and the projection out to the 2030-31 school year is 11,424. Interestingly enough, beginning in about 2024, we're starting to see a leveling out of enrollment in the district. And there's a slight movement upward towards the end of this projection. And keep in mind that this projection does not yet include the impact of new housing. We're currently doing that analysis. So we're going to take the cohort projection, which is the projection based solely on history, and we're going to add to that any impact from new students coming to the district. And we'll not only do it on a district-wide basis, we'll do it on a school basis. So in other words, if a development is being built in Nokomis area, that will apply that to the Nokomis Elementary School and then to the existing middle school, and of course later on onto the high school. So the other thing to keep in mind, too, is that one of the leveling out characteristics here is that because the elementary schools have shown the least decline over the last 6 years, only declining by 166 students, okay, while the secondary schools are still showing a significant decline, as the elementary schools, these elementary school students start to flow through the secondary schools, those numbers will begin to level out also. So looking ahead over the 5 years from this projection, it looks like a leveling out, could be a slight increase, and maybe even a more significant increase based upon our findings when it comes to new housing developments. And by the way, what we then do is we take these are the projections. So we'll say, we'll take the projections for each individual elementary school and apply them to the instructional space in those buildings. And what we'll do is we'll take a look at the board has caps on class sizes. So we're using those caps to determine what the average class sizes are on each building. We're capping them at 25 on the upper grades, and I think 21 on the lower grades. So again, to kind of give us.
We have target numbers. We don't have caps.
Yeah, we don't have hard caps, target.
I'm using the target numbers.
Okay. Yeah, I just don't want, I don't want the community to think we have caps, we have targets.
I'm sorry?
So we don't have caps, we have targets. So I just want to differentiate
okay,
that. Yeah.
Okay, when I say,
That's all.
okay, yes, you have
Yeah.
targets, I understand that. When I say caps, I'm setting that as a solid number in my projection. So I'm not saying that if one grade level in one school is showing 26 kids, we're going to divide that into two sections of 13. So it's not, it's a cap to guide us. Okay. It's also a cap that and it's not going to be the final cap because the numbers will be different. It also allows us to make sure there's equity close to equity as possible in each school building. So we don't have an elementary school, for example, with an average class size of 18 and another one with an average class size of 24. I'm making that number up. That is not, okay, to be clear, I'm not seeing that differentiation. But as we go along, we want to make sure that that differentiation doesn't exist. So that the district, on a percentage basis, the districts in terms of the schools in terms of class size get as close as they possibly can be. This is, again, you guys have it, you can see it. These are the existing elementary school boundaries. And those are the ones, and what we've done with those is we've geocoded, or geocoding means matching students to the map by address. So what we've done is we've geocoded all of the children to the map so we can actually count the number of students by grade level in each one of these districts. We can also take a look at what schools are serving the special needs population. For example, I think that you've got 2 schools that accept most, I think it's Nokomis and Tamarack, if I'm not correct, are targeted for a lot of the, forget I said that, of course, okay, let's check that. Okay, what we noticed when we did this thing, there were a lot of students that were leaving their home districts, go to other schools. It turns out the overwhelming majority of them are special needs kids. So in terms of assessing locations and assessing instructional space, that's important for us to know. It's, and again, there are some special needs students that are in that do have maximum class sizes based on classification. So we need to know that as we're looking at each individual instructional space, and that's what we are working on. This next slide, this is a projection by each elementary school. So you can take a look at how they changed between 2019-20 and 2020 and 2025, the current enrollment. So each column shows the increase or decline by each school. So for example, Cayuga had 528 students in 2019-20, and they have 482 in 25-26. Chippewa, 548 in the base year, 566 in the current year. Grundy had 495, and it has 495 this year. We're at Hiawatha was 563 and 564. Linwood had some decline from 630 to 559. Merrimack went from 460 to 461 to 340. Nokomis stayed pretty even, 514 and 517. Tamarack the same, 454 and 439. Waverly increased from 464 to 512, and Winona from 472 to 489. And there were very few extremes here, so it's not like, as I said, the enrollment in the elementary schools between 2019 20 and 2025-26 was 166 students. So there really are not a lot of extremes here. How that comes out when we do our analysis of instructional space, that's to be determined. Okay. All right. This next file, this next table, and again, I'm sorry, they're very difficult to see. I understand that. And oops, I broke your. I broke your thing.
That's okay.
Okay.
You want to give me the battery?
Yeah, put it back. Okay. On this table, what we're showing here is that this next table is our analysis consists of a number of different things. We need to take a look at how each room in each school building is used. So what this table shows on the elementary level is the number of general education. Thank you. Is the number of general education classes required to meet the needs of the students this current year. Okay, so we need to have those classes, okay, those classrooms for gen ed students. Then we look at all of the other types of dedicated rooms that exist in the building. For example, every building has to have a music room. Every building has to have an art room, a band room. Computer rooms, we need to talk a little bit about that because most of your schools kind of have their computer labs as part of their media centers. So we're not 100% sure about set-asides for computer rooms. It's only in 2 buildings, Grundy and Cayuga, and we will speak to the principals about that. Every building has to have a resource room for Paulettes. There are mainstream special ed kids and there are self-contained special ed kids. Mainstream special ed kids are usually pulled out for special instruction in a specific area. Resource rooms are designed for that. Self-contained kids need dedicated classrooms. You need rooms for ESL, ELA, and bilingual, and these are the actual numbers of rooms being used. The other total are rooms that we need to explore. How are they being used? Are they available for other kinds of program? Are they net? This needs to be confirmed. And as I say, the other school categories include small group instruction, the gym, self-contained special needs, cafeteria, auditorium, speech, OT, PT, guidance, and all-purpose rooms. So we need to look at each of these values for each of the buildings and validate them. You can't use a cafeteria as a classroom. You You don't want to use a media center as a classroom. So we need to evaluate all of the building, all of the instructional space in the building, which is what we're doing, confirm it with the principals, and then see what the net values are. If, for example, we come to a school that's got, and again, an example, has 30 available classrooms, 21 are being used for gen ed. There are 9 classrooms that are used for other that are used for other programs, such as dedicated spaces. Do you have an art room? That takes away one. Do you have a music room? That takes away another. Do you have self-contained rooms? That takes away several more. So we're able to then see how each room is being used, how many children are in those rooms in a given period of time. So, for example, if you've got multiple resource rooms in a building, but only a very small number of students may be in that school building, we may be able to reduce that number of resource rooms. Again, don't know if we're going to do that, just kind of give you an example of what we do moving forward. So finally, in this summary, in this update, we're doing the initial analysis of school utilization and proposed revisions, and we'll have that done by October 31st, so it can be reviewed administratively, not for any administrative influence, just to make sure that we haven't made any egregious errors, okay? Okay, then from that, if there are any corrections, and there'll only be corrections to statistical errors or numerical errors, that kind of a thing, we will then prepare to have a full report to the board and recommendation, making and presenting it out to the public so the public can look at it, comment on it, question it, express concerns. And then based on that feedback, we will have a final report to the district by December 15, 2025. And as I said, we're on track to do that. Okay, so again, the district has been great in giving us the data. The data has been very good. In terms of going into each school building, we've felt very welcomed, at least I have. And I'm open to questions.
We'll open it to the board. Stephanie?
So would you say we're in a better position because it looks like the enrollment is leveling off in the projection? Does it look like, are we in a better position to make plans because it looks like we're leveling off in the future?
Yeah, I believe so. You know, if you take a look at are you ever going to get back to 16,000 students? I doubt it. Are you ever going to get back to 15,000 students? I doubt it. You've already closed 3 schools over the last few years, okay? So I think that given all of that, looking at the leveling out of projections and assuming you're not going to see over the next 3 years an overwhelming number of kids in for new developments. And again, I'm not prepared to say that yes or no. I think this gives you a very good it will give you a very good roadmap for planning, and also for informing the community. For example, I think it's important that we get a final report to you by December 15th, because if you decide to make any changes, any families that might be affected by that have plenty of time to adjust. If it changes your transportation, reduces, increases, again, not prepared to say that. It helps you in terms of budgeting for transportation, which is a significant number in the school district. Okay, if we can do anything in this process to consolidate any of the transportation, we'll do that also. So again, to directly answer your question, I believe that this data will give this board enough information to make good decisions. Okay.
Mike?
Yeah, hi, Russ. Allison, can we go back to the slide of the projected enrollment in the elementary schools?
Which one? This one?
That one right there, yeah.
Okay.
So this is the kind of stuff I really like to see, because this starts to show us what the district's going to look like over the next 5 years, and you're pretty confident 5 years is a good look forward, that the data is pretty accurate.
Okay.
Right? That's what you said to us, right? 10 years is a problem, but 5 years is pretty accurate.
Yeah.
Do you have this for the middle schools as well?
I'm sorry?
Do you have this projection like this for the middle school as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay.
So, and I think that's great. I think we need to see that, because I think this lays the predicate for any other decisions we're going to make going forward, right? But I'm concerned because go forward a couple of slides now, Allison. That one right there. Up, back.
This one?
No, last one. That one there. Nope. Oh, Allison. Okay. Oh, come on, Allison. You make it.
There?
Oh.
Where do you want me to go? I'm sorry.
Oh, the next one. Go to the next. Next.
That one?
No, one more. There you go. Okay. So when you say recommendation for any school closure and proposed boundaries by November 30th, 2025, my question becomes that's based on what? Are you basing it on? Because we haven't told you whether we want this to reflect a certain amount of dollars, whether we want it to reflect a certain utilization.
I think that to answer your question, we're going to look at each school, okay? We're going to look at the available instructional space. If we find that based on everything we put together, any school is significantly underpopulated and any school is significantly overpopulated, we'll balance the enrollments. How that plays out, okay? How that plays out in terms of the data we're doing is, can we make a recommendation or make a statement? Yes, it is feasible to do A, B, or C, to close school A, school B, C. Is it feasible? You guys have to make the decision. Is it desirable? Okay, that becomes a whole other issue. If I tell you that you've got a school building that has a capacity of 600, again, I'm making numbers up. Okay, so don't guess which buildings I'm targeting. Okay, but if you have a school building that has a capacity, instructional space-wise, of 600 students, and there are only 400 students in the building, okay, can you redistribute those students and not overburden schools that these students will be sent to? Or can you not do that? Because if you did that, the schools that you would send children to would be overburdened. So again, it's not, I'm not doing this on the basis of saved revenue. I'm doing it on the basis of use of space. How that translates into a board policy or a board decision, a financial decision, if it is one, that's not up to us. We're going to be telling you, here's the space, here's the number of students, here are all your programs, here are what your boundaries look like, here's what they would look like under option A, here's what they would look like under option B. So again, if we find that it's feasible to close a school building, we also have to tell you what the consequence of that closure is.
Well, I guess the next question then is one of the parameters by which you're doing that is the target numbers that we have for class sizes, right? That now the question becomes, we had raised class sizes when we first started having some financial difficulty, and then I guess we went up 2 or 1 in the 20. That's for this year, right? And then we went up 1 the year before. So what numbers did we provide them?
What were you using? K is 24, first is 25, second is 25, third is 26, fourth is 27, and fifth is
It was the
28.
target numbers before any of the budget concerns the last 2 years. That was.
Yeah, those were the targets.
But he also
Because they
said
clarified that.
So when you said 21 and 25 were your numbers that you were using, you were just hypothetically using.
I have the numbers from Michelle.
He stated he was using Sachem's targeted numbers. That's what we had given him
Okay.
like 2 meetings ago.
So the utilization that you present to us is going to be based on those target numbers.
You'll get there'll be a number of tables, but there's going to be a school table, a table for each school for each year of the projection. And there'll be 3 rows for each of 3 rows for each of the schools in each of the years. Row 1 will be the number of students by grade. Okay. Row 2, based upon a division of students by grade by targeted class sizes, will tell you column 3 or row 3, which will be the average class size. So we'll take the top line, or the divisor is the targeted class size. That will be put against the number of kids in the grade level, which will yield the number of instructional spaces needed. Because there are no fractional numbers of students, if an average class size is 3.28, we'll pump it up to 4. Okay, just because there were just no fractions of kids. So that's what the final report is going to have in it. The report that we'll present to talk to the district about before we make the November recommendation is, again, taking the targeted class size, the number of kids in a particular grade, and what that average class size is. And in the end, we'll take, if we need 4 kindergarten, 5 first grade, 6 second grade, whatever the number of grades, that'll tell us this is what we need for gen ed students. Then we'll take a look at how many pull-out or how many resource room kids are in each grade level. That'll determine how many kids you need, how many rooms you need for resource. And then we'll take a look in each building of self-contained kids who are fully fully self-contained, are not mainstream for most subjects. So the tables for each school will be very detailed, but they will be based on targeted class sizes. Then you can make it, then the decision can be made. So if you have a school, for example, that is really within the targets except for one bubble grade. Okay, so that one bubble grade might have a slightly higher class size. As long making sure we keep that child in that particular school building. So that's the kind of detailed data that this report will provide. If I showed any of that stuff now in the preliminary form, it would just cause all kinds of rumors, and things that you don't want out there. Okay, as we go along with this, we see what the numbers are, and we make adjustments to those numbers. But we're not prepared to present them publicly until we can say, this is what our data shows us. This is what we want to present to the board. This is what we want the board to make decisions on. Okay, it's kind of tricky doing an update because you don't want to not give information, but you don't want to give too much information. Okay, so it's everything. Our company right now is the only one who really knows what's going on, and we will share that with you. Okay, and one of the we're looking. How can I put this? We're looking at feasibility. We're not looking at mandate. No one's told us what to do. No one's told us what to expect. We're just looking at feasibility. We're looking at those numbers. As I said, one of my part of the company, the thing that I look for most is impact on instruction, because I have an instruction background, an education background. I've got a couple of people who do stats for me, and I've got a transportation person, and I've got a partner. You guys may have met Tim. I think Tim saved me today because I forgot to attach a map to the presentation to Michelle. It's funny. We sent surveys out to all the principals, and there was an issue with the Nokomis survey, and so we thought we're going to have that blank line for the Nokomis, which we didn't want to do. And then 1 minute after I sent the presentation to Michelle, we got the update on Nokomis, and we put it in. That's the one I forgot to send you, but that is the one that we're presenting tonight. Okay.
Jess, did you have a question?
Any other questions?
Yep.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I know when we had met a few weeks ago and you had presented, we had we had clarified what the targets were, and we had said that we'd like those optimized as low under the targets as possible. So is that what you're doing, or are you going based on the targets where we are giving as a threshold?
Well, I use the targets. That gives me direction. Okay, I can't make them up. So the targets, again, we try and keep the target. If we can keep the targets in every grade level in every school, the majority of grade levels in every school, we think that would be great data for you to go on. If we find that we can't, that may be the kind of thing that makes us shift attendance zones or do those kinds of things. The target class sizes are targets, right? They're not mandates, correct? Yeah.
So again, I think this is a really pivotal point for CHM, and us as a board and a community really need to look at the quality of education that we're providing. And I really think that while we've provided those targets and run that scenario, which is helpful data, I also think we should provide targets to run scenarios that they were a few years ago. Because I did look back on some state data, and we were we've been going on the rise for the past 10 years from the actuals. So I know the targets haven't changed that much over the past few years, but the actuals have been creeping up. So are we able to run two different scenarios on what our ideal class sizes are versus what the targets we provided were from 2 years ago?
I mean, my take on it is I think we got to do the current targets because this is a feasibility study. Then the board is going to have to make a decision. Do we increase class sizes? Do we close a school, which may increase class sizes?
Here's what we've done in the school districts, okay? Okay, and we're more than happy to do it for you. We'll provide three scenarios, okay? Three multipliers. So we'll say, and you can say, give us two additional target class sizes. Say, try what the numbers look like at these class sizes and try what the numbers look like at these classes. So you may do something like, we want to go 20 kindergarten, 21st grade, 21. I'm not suggesting this, it's up to you. Okay, and they say, if you do that, this is what the numbers look like. If you take the existing class sizes, this is what these numbers look like. If you go up one level, okay, to like one more or two more per grade level. So you take a look, okay, here's the menu, okay, what makes the most sense? What gives us the best balance of class sizes in the district? Again, your decision. I don't mind adding the other multiple. I've done it before. It's not It's not the biggest deal. It's no added cost. It's very little extra time for us, but it gives you a better picture. So for each school, you could have three tables, right? You could have at your target class size, at this desirable class size, or at this other class size. Remember, the larger the class sizes, the less rooms you need. Okay, but you get bigger classes. Okay, the smaller the class sizes, the more rooms you need. Okay, so again, that's your decision. We can't exceed your capacity.
Yeah, let me just take a leaning of the board to see if they want that extra data, but keep in mind, the auditor was just here and kind of warned us about certain things, right? So we can get the data if it's no extra cost and analyze it, but
It's just, to me, it's just what you guys want us to look at.
Yeah.
Okay, that's period. So if you want us to look at two other options, reasonable options, and if you say kindergarten at 16, well, you can't do it. Okay.
Right.
Or so if you say kindergarten at 25, you don't want to do it. So it's a matter of you saying, you know what they are now, and decide we'd like to look at maybe 2 less per grade level, maybe 2 more per grade level. And then the tables will tell you what that yields.
Yeah.
Okay. Remember, population, class size generate number of instructional spaces that you need.
so what's the board thinking? Do we want to get that data?
I think
Lem-
it doesn't hurt to have more information to make an educated decision on.
Yes.
So Sabrina's yes, Jess,
Yes.
yes, Steph, yes, Mike, yes.
Great.
Yes, yes.
So yes, because I think that'll also help us know what the budget would
Right.
look like if we did
Right,
go.
it's going to prove it
Because
out either
everybody
way.
wants
So,
smaller class
fine.
sizes, but they don't want to raise their
Right.
taxes either, so.
yeah, so,
So
I think
why
that's a
don't
good
you,
point.
why don't you put your heads together?
connecting
yeah, so
it,
why don't
they
we
might
ask,
see
why
the
don't we ask
value.
Michelle and Patty to kind of maybe make a suggestion? Is it
Get
current
into-
baseline, and do we go 2 down, 2 up, or 2 down, or 1 down, 2 down?
As soon as you get it to me, I will plug them
Whatever
into the
makes
tables.
sense, and then,
I'll plug them into the tables.
We'll
Okay,
go
so remember,
probably
keep in mind, class size
just down.
class size generates the number of instructional spaces.
I think, Ross, we would like to go 2 down on each class. We
2
don't
down
wanna-
and 2 up?
I don't think we want to
No,
go
not
up.
go up, just
I
go
think
2
we only
down.
2
want to go
down.
down.
Okay, okay. All right, so we'll present the second table 2 down, okay, from the target. Okay, makes sense to me. And we'll work on that and incorporate it into the final report.
thank you.
Yeah, that's what we'll do.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? Dennis?
Russ, when you give a recommendation, when it comes, if that possibility comes of you saying, hey, to keep these class sizes, you can, for argument's sake, close 2 schools down. When you do that, do you look also to not affect as many kids as possible to have to jump from school to school to school? Because you close 1 school down, we put it into another school. Now you got to pull kids out of that school because you're resetting all boundaries everywhere, correct?
Yeah.
So are you trying to keep, if you're going to do that, when you guys make that recommendation, to keep as many kids possible in the schools that they're currently in?
Okay, in another project that we've been doing here on Long Island, okay? No, in New Jersey. I got my state straight now. But a similar school district to this, okay? And they were absolutely convinced that they were going to close one of their schools. Going in that, Dr. Haber and Tim Ammon, my associate, you guys, piece of cake, close the school and figure everything out. Well, they can't. They couldn't do it. They couldn't do it for numerous reasons. Number one, the enrollment was increasing, okay? And there was major construction around that school. Number two, it caused other schools to be overpopulated. So the same thing would apply here. So let's say that we have a notion, what would happen if we closed school A? Okay. And we distributed we'd have to distribute these K-5 students to reasonable schools, to schools that are on their border, right? If you're surrounded by 3 schools, how do we distribute those kids out? It may say, okay, from a capacity point of view, this makes sense. Maybe from a financial point of view, this makes sense. And that becomes your decision, because you're not going to be sending, if you close a school, you're not going to be sending all of these kids to a neighboring school. They're going to be divided up around surrounding schools. So that's going to make significant changes, and they're emotional, and they can be distressing. And we don't listen. Closing the school is the last thing we want to do. It's the last thing anyone wants to do, right? I would assume that, unless it just becomes financially impossible to run that school building. For example, we've been in districts where population areas have changed, where we have schools with capacity of 560 kids that are down to 180 kids. You can't keep those schools open. You just can't. So That's not the topic of this study. The topic of this study is the feasibility of doing different things, right? Whether it's redistricting, whether it does come to closing a school, that's what this is, a feasibility study. Yes.
I mean, you still, whether you redistrict or close, you're moving kids.
I'm sorry?
Whether you redistrict or close, you're moving kids.
Yeah. Okay.
So-
Yeah, by definition.
So I have a couple of things. So obviously, if you look just right at this chart right here, you see that there's one school that, pops right out with 13 general ed classes,
Oh,
while
is that
another one has
confirmed?
28.
That's not confirmed yet.
Okay.
That's why if you look at the bottom, we need to confirm these numbers. We need to take, what we need to do is say, we absolutely need these classrooms.
Right.
Okay. We absolutely don't understand what's going on with these other classrooms. What is the count? Okay. We're confirming that. This is here to show you that we're doing it, but it's not a conclusion. So, okay.
So even if it were off a little bit, there's
Yeah.
still a glaring difference between our most populated school and our least populated school.
I
I think we
don't
can
know-
safely say that.
No, I can't safely say that because I want to have, I cannot safely say that because.
I see the enrollment every week, so I can
Okay.
personally safely say
Okay.
it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely have your interpretation. I'm just not confirming anything yet.
When you look at everything, and if you looked at a possible redistricting scenario, are you going to look at it from a point of view of, obviously we have different feeders. We have 5 that go to one high school and 5 that go to another. Are you going to show us how to redraw, if that were the will of the board to redistrict, show us how to redraw to keep the children within their own
If you can, okay.
current feeder?
Okay, so, okay, here's what, okay. Now this is everybody grouped together because when I do the report, you're going to see separate ones. What I'll do is I will outline, these are your existing attendance zones, okay? As I create, let's go with as I create, as we create changes in the attendance zones, we'll overlay the existing zones on there so you can see what areas are being moved, okay? What the counts of those areas are being moved. What we won't do is cherry pick kids. So for example, if we have to redistrict, we're not going to, okay, we get 3 kids from here and 4 kids from here. We need to remove them as an identifiable group, maybe an identifiable development or an identifiable neighborhood, so that we're not just saying, we're not just splitting up kids randomly to come up with numbers. What we're doing is we're trying to balance enrollments based upon what the needs are in each of the schools. So again, we start with the baseline, which are the current attendance zones. As we internally begin to do these processes, we overlay all of these attendance zones over what we're working on. At the end, we'll say these numbers seem to look the best. So if we take this change in one of the schools, overlay its existing attendance boundaries, we can tell you who the kids are by ID number, okay? We can tell you what the addresses are that are being moved, okay? The total number of kids, and see how that impacts, and then where the children are going. So, for example, if we do an overlay of these on a proposed attendance zone, we'll see what schools they're either going to or coming from. So, yeah, that's the process. The process is we will provide that information, and if you look at it and say, well, can you tweak this? Can you tweak that? Yeah, we'll do that. If it makes sense.
So as not to waste time, I'd want you to be most cognitive. Like if you look at Grundy and Merrimack,
Okay.
Grundy goes to north, Merrimack goes to east, yet some of those children live a block away from each other. So if you thought about it and you said, oh, well, Merrimack has lower enrollment than Grundy, let's take some of those kids and sprinkle them into Merrimack, I would not be on board with that, because you're going to now take children that should have gone to north and put them in east. Maybe they have siblings that already go to north. That would be completely
Well,
absurd.
one of the things one of the concerns I heard expressed was splitting up at least one elementary school over the high school, splitting the kids up, and there was a concern expressed. And there's a couple of things that you absolutely cannot do, okay, or you wouldn't want to do. You don't want to place any school in another school's attendance zone, right? So it may, and your schools are pretty well spaced apart, but sometimes you come up with really good numbers on a boundary, say, but you can't have this school in that attendance. You don't want a Merrimack school in the Tamarack attendance zone, okay? So we're cognizant of that. There may be some situations that, but we'll look at that. What you're saying is exactly what we take a look
Yeah, I
at.
think you're going to give
I
us
want that to be
Yeah.
something that you feel is very important, that the children, that the households kind of stay in the feeder pattern that they should be going to. Yes, we probably do need redistricting from what our numbers look like, but we should not be taking kids that should have gone to East and throw them into North and vice versa.
So let me jump in. Michelle, have we given them our feeders? Because again, we don't want this to be a wasted time,
Right.
to Meredith's point. So if we're going to redistrict, we should stick within the feeders is probably the will of the board and the administration. We don't want to start splitting feeders up.
I'll make sure
so,
that he has all the feeders
Yeah.
from elementary and up.
You know, the first thing not to beat this to death, okay? We do look, if we have to make changes and we have to move kids from one school to another, okay, we look for clusters of kids.
No, we just want to make sure you're aware of our feeder systems.
Right.
So,
I'm aware of it.
Okay, that's fine.
No, I am aware of it, okay?
Because that's a great example. Grundy and Merrimack
Yeah.
literally border each other.
I think we
Children
touched on
that
this
live a
like a
block
couple of meetings
away
ago as well, right?
Go to different high schools.
So I want to wrap this up because again, Steph, you have one more because then we've got to move on. But
Yep.
this was a great, we do these for checkpoints for the community to show transparency,
Yeah.
right? There's still a lot more work that you guys are going to do.
Yeah.
So again, this was a great
And-
update.
And
So,
believe me, as I said, all parents and grandparents and we have kids and, and it's a lot of compassion that goes into this. So yes, your question is something that we'll address to the best of our ability.
Steph, one more. And then
Okay.
we'll-
I have two, but one's easy.
Yep, go ahead.
You're going to redistrict as an option. And then if you do recommend closing a school, is there a full redistrict with that
Absolutely.
recommendation? Okay. And then my second question is, do you take and have they been given the programs that rent out the extra space currently? So like in a school that looks like it's smaller, sometimes it's not smaller because there's a BOCES program running in it. Is that going to be factored in?
When Mr. Haber walked the buildings, he's able to see what programs are in there, but we'll make sure that we spell those out.
Right,
to
because that's
people that are leasing
revenue
our-
for us.
yes,
So
of
we don't want to
course.
lose revenue
Mhm.
in by,
You
we'll
know,
close a school, we'll lose revenue and it washes out.
You're not the only district that's asked me that question. So
Okay.
yeah,
All
yes.
right, thanks.
Okay, so if there's nothing else,
No, thank you very much.
thank you for
Appreciate it. I know
kind
you came
attention.
From a long
Thank
distance.
you,
so
Ross.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
okay, thank you.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
Okay. We're still in the superintendent's report, aren't we?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
The last one is a Union Avenue update. There have been a couple inquiries about where we are with that, so I'm going to ask Michelle to give a little more detail. We're tied up with the title company right now.
Yes, we had 3 outstanding items and we were able to resolve 2 of them today. One of them is closing out any outstanding items with Department of Health. I did get confirmation that the removal of the storm drains and the sanitary system, we have a no further action letter from Suffolk County Department of Health. And we also received Suffolk County Department of Health approval on the removal of the underground storage tank. Just got signatures tonight for the final cost report. I'm going to send that up to the state tomorrow so that we can close out the building permit. And then the last remaining outstanding item is to get the clear title to transfer the property over to the county. Our attorney is working on that, and I did send her an email before coming down to the meeting, letting her know all the other things have been
Can you
cleared.
just spell out for the community what that actually means? Because we've got Sachem School District number 10. Now we're known as Sachem Central School District, and that's what's kind of
And
holding
in
us up.
between there, we were Sachem
Number 5.
number 5. So we were a 10, and then we became a 5. Now we're a central school district.
So it sounds
I-
like that was deeded to Sachem 10 or something along
And
the lines.
it
Because the
go-
contract is for Sachem 10, now known as Sachem Central.
Right, and that's where we're having trouble proving that we were Sachem number 10 at one point, and apparently that goes back to 1867. And then
Right.
in 1955, we became Sachem number 5. We were able to provide the proof for number 5, and then as the central school district, it's number 10 that's holding us up. I believe the attorney was going to see if the county would be willing to waive that requirement of going back and trying to prove that number 10 piece.
Okay,
But I will follow up with her again tomorrow now that these other items have been cleared.
thank you. Questions from the board?
I have one.
Go ahead, Steph.
Can we just state that we really want this sold and we want to move on and we need this money? Because I've had calls and concerns that Sachem's stalling it, and I'm swearing, so I want a public statement that we're not. this is just normal annoyance, but I've had people reach out asking me why we're stalling this, and we're really not. We want this sold, and we need this money, and as you all heard before. So please, and the waiver, is there such thing as a waiver? Just to like say, please forget that we were ever 10?
Chris, any legal guidance on that? Just update.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon when you sell property and you have a title report that there are exceptions listed in the title report. And when you get that title report and you have those exceptions, you work towards clearing those exceptions, which we've done for the couple that Michelle was talked about. And every now and then there's an exception that's listed in the title report that for one reason or another, and this is a technicality here, that it's not being cleared by the title company. And often, even though it's not cleared by the title company, the purchaser is willing to purchase with that exception. So they essentially waive it. So that's part of what's in the equation right now.
Any other questions from the board? Mike, go ahead.
I just want to point out, just so the community realizes, we don't have a piece of property to sell every year. So the proceeds of the sale of this, we got to not consider using it for day-to-day operations, because I don't have a union average to sell each year to fill that gap. So we would look to the administration to come up with what we do with those funds and best way to use those.
Yeah, and I think we heard from the auditor, so I'm sure Michelle's got some ideas. So we look forward to the recommendation there. But yeah, okay, all right.
And
Anything
I'm going
else?
to pass it back to Vinny, but Mia is not here today. She's at a gymnastics meet at Whitman, so hopefully she's doing well.
Commercial for the Sachem Day.
Oh, sure. I actually just sent something out to all the principals again to make sure everyone is aware. November 1st is our second section Sachem Day 5K. So we need everyone to sign up for that. It was a wonderful event last year, and we're looking for it to be bigger and better this year as well. And that is on the website, and also all the information through your individual schools.
Okay, thank you, Patty. All right, takes us to the student board member report. Daniel, how are we doing at North?
We're doing great. This is our homecoming week, so we've been preparing for that. First, we have our Spirit Week. So Monday we did a Jersey Day. Tuesday we did Adam Sandler Day, where everyone dressed up like Adam Sandler. And then Wednesday, today, we did on Mix and Match Day, where people wore mismatched outfits. So it's been going well. A lot of people are participating, and we're excited about that. And next, we have our dance on Friday, as well as our pep rally, which are two really big events that we're looking forward to. We have a lot of people scheduled to make it to the dance, and we're really excited about that as well. And then finally, we have the game on Saturday, which is most important, and we're looking forward to that. We have our student section all dressed in white, and we're really excited for that. And I'd also like to highlight our two major senior events we had over the last 2 weeks, our senior sunrise and our senior kindergarten walk, both of which ran very well and were a lot of fun. And finally, I'd like to shout out the WSHR radio station, which has been doing a lot of really good work between YouTube videos and radio shows, and also is going to start broadcasting games pretty soon, live.
Thank you, Daniel. Any questions from the board for Daniel? Okay. Thank you, Daniel. Appreciate
Thank
it.
you, guys.
Okay. Okay, takes us to the approval of minutes. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Steph, second by Meredith. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Visitors, Allison, I think I have 2 cards here. We'll call up Miss Luca. Got 3 minutes, so thank you.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Lori Luca. I am both a parent in this district and an elementary teacher in another district, someone who experiences firsthand how class size impacts every part of a child's education. Research consistently shows that smaller class sizes make a lasting difference. There are many studies, particularly one from Tennessee, that found that students in classes of around 15 perform significantly better than those in classes over 20. Not just that year, but for years to come. They were more likely to graduate high school, attend college, and need fewer interventions along the way. Now, obviously, in our own district, we have elementary classes with 26 to 28 students. That study considered 20 students to be a large class. So imagine the strain that 28 puts on both the teacher and the children. My own daughter's class has 26 students, and when I was there for curriculum night, it was difficult to even move comfortably around the classroom because of the crowded desks there. As a teacher, I can tell you that when class sizes grow, something important gets lost. It becomes harder to give each child the attention they need. It becomes harder to notice when a student is struggling emotionally or academically. Teachers want to build relationships, support behaviors, and individualize learning. But when there are nearly 30 children in a room, even the best teachers are spread too thin. And as a parent, I see what that means from the other side. I see the impact large classes have on kids, their anxiety, their sense of safety, their ability to connect with their teacher. My children love school, but I worry about how large class sizes can take away from the experiences that both my children and their peers deserve. I hear people sometimes say, when I was younger, we had big class sizes and we turned out fine. But the truth is, today's classrooms are very different. Kids today face far more social, emotional, and behavioral challenges. Teachers are not only teaching academics, we're managing emotional regulation, anxiety, trauma, and behavioral needs every single day. Students are different, their world is different, and they need more from us. That's why class size must be the #1 investment in this district. Smaller classes aren't just about comfort. They are about effectiveness, safety, and long-term success. And while smaller class sizes are expensive, large class sizes can actually cost more over time through added interventions, counseling, behavioral supports, and lost instruction time. Investing in smaller class sizes is preventative. It saves money in the long run and ensures that all children, not just the ones who can self-manage, have the opportunities to succeed. If we truly want to make the most meaningful investment in student achievement and well-being, this is where it starts. Small class sizes are not a luxury. They are the foundation for everything else we hope to accomplish. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to creating classrooms where every child can be seen, supported, and set up for success.
Thank you, Ms. Luca. Appreciate it. Ms. Iker?
So I hate following that because that was amazing. And I'd like to just start with ditto. I'd like to thank the board for requesting that other class size and looking at those numbers because like she said, it really makes a difference. I know that Russ went to all the classrooms and talked to teachers, but I just wanted to see, has the board gone to any of these classrooms? Because again, my child has 28 kids in his class. I have a picture I can share with you guys. I think I have to give it to Allison. You could not walk. There was no space for small group breakout sessions. There was no space for flexible seating. It was a room full of desks with an amazing, amazing teacher, but she's a human and she's not going to be able to hit all these students. So I ask you, as you guys make these decisions, talk to those teachers, visit those classrooms, analyze our own internal test scores, look at the couple bubble classrooms that have these large sizes and compare them to our smaller sizes. I'm not saying go against the nation, go against our own district and look at those and you'll see the difference. And I understand money and budget is a thing. I'm not going to deny that. But if we're going to look at this, not looking at our children and the reason why we're here and looking at it purely as a business, do we feel we're offering a superior product? Because unlike the past, there is that scary word of charter schools. There are options out there and we do not want families leaving Sachem and taking their money with us. Have we done any analysis of the potential loss if those families leave? Any analysis of the AIS support that this will cause on us? That's really it. It's just, class sizes is extremely important. And I beg for you guys to look and talk to those teachers and those principals and even those students. Ask the students how they feel. And, you know, there are students who went up 6 in Grundy alone, the 3 classes that we have left. They're 4th graders. They can speak. They're eloquent enough for 4th graders. How do you feel about your class sizes? Because they are also feeling it.
Thank you. Ms. Barron?
Hi, everyone. I'm also here to talk about the class sizes. I'm a mother of 3 boys. My oldest goes to Sachem Academy. My middle son is in the 4th grade at Grundy Elementary School. And my youngest will be entering kindergarten next year. My middle son has a mass in his brain. He has an IEP and receives multiple services through the school. Thanks to his amazing teachers at Grundy over the years and their dedication and the interventions we put into place, he has made great academic strides. He is currently on grade level, but with the increased class sizes, there is a major concern. Earlier this year, I started a petition about class sizes. After having learning that there's as many as 28 kids in elementary classrooms. What began originally as a concern for elementary school quickly grew into middle and high school. Parents were telling me that their kids had 30 or more students in their class. Sachem target class size are pushing higher than the New York City average and the New York State average. This is extremely concerning because larger class sizes mean less individual attention, less support for students who need it, and fewer opportunities for our students. This doesn't set our children up for success, it sets them back. And these setbacks don't just disappear, they follow the students through the years, forcing the district to either spend more money and resources later on to catch up, and if they don't, it's our kids who are going to pay the price. And they're the future. So we're gonna have kids that are receiving poor education because of this, and they're gonna be our future and run this country. I'm asking Sachem to take action. Our kids deserve better. Classrooms should not be about making the numbers work. These kids are our foundation for the future. So I appreciate you guys' dedication and looking into classroom sizes, and I hope we can really do something about it. Thank you.
Thank you. Allison, anybody else? That's it? Okay. Okay, takes us to item 3, business items, consent agenda A through G. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Mike. Questions or comments? Just have yeah, Dennis, go ahead.
I had a question sorry. So with the, I think, with the pools, this is what my question is, I read it and it says that there was some Neptune signed off on a, and they knew that there was a problem when we signed off on this. There was a variance, which says that they knew from the start that we had a problem, and then we're paying now for somebody to go back and fix a problem?
We had a variance for how that filter system is run at North. And when we started having problems with the filtration system, the company that we brought in on contract was trying to fix the filter, but using the manufacturer's specifications, which is not what we had for that filter. So we had a variance to operate it differently through the Department of Health. So we are declaring it an emergency because this has been going on all summer, and we're able to go to the company that initially installed it at the variance to make it operate
So
properly.
what I'm asking is though, if Neptune, we had their engineers sign off on it, it says that it was working. At the end of this project, when we first installed it, it says Neptune engineers signed off on this.
At the variance.
Right, so if they signed off on something and now it doesn't work, we have no recourse of action?
That's when it was installed years ago.
So we accepted that they
How old
just
is the
said
filter?
it doesn't work?
The-
We accepted that they said it's not proper, but we're signing off on it? I don't
No, no,
understand.
no,
What's the variance? Variance
I'd have
means
to
it
get
didn't
more
work, right?
information. To operate optimally for the pool, we had to get a sign off from the Department of Health to work that filter. I don't,
Because I know it said not meeting standard requirements, which basically that's what a variance is. So we let them sign off on something that it wasn't.
I'll get you the information on why we have a variance on it. I don't have that off the top of my head, but that's how that system runs for us. I don't know if it was something specific to the pool, but I'll have that for your Friday letter to let you know why we have it operate out of variance.
Thank you.
And this is not a new filter system. This is old, right? So it's out of warranty. What's the cost of this emergency? Do we know?
I think it was up for determination on after the company came. They needed a valve and something else, and then and we're also signing off that whatever is needed, we're willing to just say, okay. That's basically what.
I'll get that
what it
information.
said.
Okay.
And I have a little bit of
Go ahead, Meredith.
So basically, filter systems, I kind of have a little inside information on all of this. Filter systems over time in anybody's pool can break. And when they break, there are certain parts that can fix them. The initial company that installed it with the variance so that it could work for us in our needs. They didn't do anything wrong. They just needed to make it work a little bit different to suit our needs without going into something even more expensive. And that company wasn't brought in to fix what was broken. And the company that was brought in to fix what was broken was costing us several $1,000s more. So instead of costing about $3,000, it was costing over $7,000. And then they were kind of like, well, that $7,000 might fix your problem. Whereas this company who originally installed it, we are getting like kind of the emergency is to get this company back
Because
in.
we couldn't reach them on contract. So
Right.
by declaring the emergency, it's gone through the whole
Right.
summer. We're bringing back the company that knows what's wrong and how to fix it right off the bat.
It's cutting red tape and doing it the way it needs to be done for our pool and saving money.
All right, so we've got a motion and a second. Any other questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Section 4, Personnel, Consent Agenda A through P. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second. Second by Sabrina. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 5, Personnel Support Staff, Consent Agenda A through K. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Dennis. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 6, Administrators. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Stephanie, second by Mike. Questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Section 7, Contracts, Consent Agenda A through G. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Sabrina, second by Stephanie. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 8, Budget Transfer. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Mike, second by Meredith. Questions or comments? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 9, Donations, Consent Agenda A through B. Can I have a motion, please? Motion by Jessica, second by Steph. All in questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And Steph, I know we have one, Allison, we have one anonymous donor, but do we get a thank you note out for the first one? Thank you. Okay, and thank you to that anonymous donor. Okay. Section 10, Committee on Special Education, Consent Agenda A through B. Can I have a motion? Motion by Steph, second by Jessica. Questions? All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Section 11, Monthly Reports. Do we have any updates for monthly reports? We'll go Mike first.
I just reiterate that obviously we all heard Brett's report. The audit committee met, was well attended, so I was happy to see some new community members there as well. I think it's important the community hears that information firsthand. I know that was Jessica's first one. Very eye-opening, right?
Good.
So hopefully that helps lay some foundation for moving forward.
Yep, great. And any other budget, committees? So we got legislative, so I'll.
I have diversity. She'll do legislative.
Okay, why don't we go with diversity? first?
Diversity first.
So diversity had our first meeting tonight. It really went well. We did it with the adults first. We're going to bring the students in on the next one. I think that we have a little bit more of a hold of what we're accomplishing, but we would like to see if we could get a real charge from the board. When you guys all think of the diversity committee, like what do you feel we should be getting accomplished? Some of the things that we talked about is, and I didn't even know this, we send out like kind of a welcome packet to all our new families. And one of our parents happens to be not just new to our district, but new to our country. And so she really had a good insight for us. I think that kind of diving into that and figuring out from the families where we can meet them at their needs instead of just handing them like a packet full of, here you go, this is like everything to know about Sachem. Like I've been here for 25 years and I don't even know everything there is to know about Sachem.
Have we ever given a?
But Andy could
charge?
probably give you a better.
Andy, maybe you can jump in.
That was actually a thought from yesterday that as I was listening to our last board meeting, our board committees are at times given charges from the Board of Education, and we just want to put that out there. If there is something you'd like us to look at or to focus on, we have plenty to work with, but if there is something in particular from the board that they would like us to work on, that we can definitely, we can definitely look
Yeah, we
into
can
it.
open it up to the board. Any questions or comments?
Yeah,
on,
I think that the first thing that we focused on in the diversity committee, which I think is a good step forward, is we're looking at tangible, attainable goals for each school year, things that we can look back on at the end of the school year to say, we accomplished this and move on to the next task. So the welcome packet was an easy one. New families that come into our district, there's an overwhelming amount of information that's available to them. Giving them a clearer picture of where to access this information, who to call, who to email, doing it through charts through our website, and also asking these families, how was your experience when you came to central registration and signed up for your son or daughter to be a student in Sachem? Did they sign up for an extracurricular club or a sport? Did they meet friends? What are some things that you would have liked to have known, now looking back at your experience, that we could do for families moving forward?
Yep. Okay. Let's go. Jess, did you have something in that stuff?
No, I was just going to say, I think a lot of the good initiatives come from the community. I know this year we're observing the Muslim holidays, which was coming from community feedback. So I think really, I guess, Meredith, anything that they come to it that the board could support, let us know, because I think a lot of those great ideas come from the community themselves.
We're also looking at dates for our annual community event. So that, stay tuned for more information on that.
Steph?
I get asked a lot about how we work on hiring diverse populations for any of our positions at Sachem. I would like to know, are we doing the diversity committee to be more student-led, program-led, what's happening in the classroom and in the community? Or do we want it to also look at things like diverse hiring practices and stuff? Because it's something I'm asked about a lot. And I also feel our diversity committee is doing really good things student facing. So as a board, what do we want the committee to be?
I can have Stacy put in our Friday packet the diversity hiring practices that we do have in place.
But they're not asking me what those are. They're asking me how we're working on it. And is that something that committee should be looking at? Or is that committee supposed to be more student-facing event stuff?
I don't think that committee would have access to guide us in the direction.
Okay. All right. So it's more student-facing. Okay.
So Meredith, maybe you take it back to the committee and find out what they're interested in, if it's outside of the bounds of what you guys are working on, and then we can have that discussion, right? Dennis, do you have something?
I mean, maybe there's something we could get out to all the new people, actually everybody in that respect, that they can do some kind of questionnaire, send it back, have you guys review it to see from year to year. I'm saying at the end of the year, like I think Andy kind of said, like a recap of what happened all year. And if we could send something out to these parents or online, where even a Google form or something where they could fill it out, and then you guys could be anonymous, doesn't even matter. And you guys just get a bunch of feedback of things that we could do better in each school, because some schools are going to be different than other schools. And at least then it would maybe give us a better idea of what to charge for the following year.
I think that was pretty in line with what some of the members on the committee had spoken about tonight, was also looking at by level, by school, but also looking at families that are just leaving each level. So our exiting fifth graders at the end of this year, even now, they're fifth graders. They've been there for already 5 complete years, getting their perspective on what would I have liked to have known when I entered, school A. And same with our exiting eighth graders and also our graduating seniors, and maybe even having some of our student members, as they get up to speed by next meeting, having them interview students in some of these settings.
So Danny, you'll do a full write-up next meeting, and he'll have to do a report.
Actually,
on
Dan doesn't know it yet, but he's responsible for all of it.
You taking notes, Daniel? Okay. Notes.
Look at her. He's like,
Sabrina, did you have something?
Yeah. Can I just add for some data of like what our population breakdown is, demographic of religion, race, and the changes over the last maybe 5 years in that? Because I know that I'm kind of leaning into legislative with this too, is that one of the things Brent spoke about is how districts are getting more money based on the population changes within their communities. I'm starting to see it tremendously in our district. And again, a lot of those things are coming without money, that I would like to see the percentage change that we've had within our programs like ENL, special ed, what language is spoken primarily at home, data like that, kind of going along diversity, just to then lead it into our legislative to say, this is our data, look at how our district is changing, but we're not getting any more support for these programs and this community, that new population that's kind of
Sure, we
moving
can
in.
definitely get you that.
Thank you.
Jess?
We did kind of talk about it at the audit committee, even though the ratio is different, still the wealth in the district is preventing additional funding based on how he explained it to us, right, Mike? Anything?
Yeah, I know it's hard to believe, but
Because there is a lower, but there's also a higher gross
the combined
incomes
wealth
in the
ratio
family.
is the number,
Yeah.
right? The combined wealth ratio. They say our community has the ability to pay more, right?
Even though we know there are pockets in the community that do not, in fact, have the ability to pay more.
Right.
but-
So we had this discussion. There was some of us who met with Legislator Doug Smith yesterday in our standing meetings to talk about the challenges we have with budget. And, the comment was made about, declining enrollment. It's like, yeah, our enrollment has declined, but we're asked to do more, right, with less. And the demands on the district to provide more services, we're not getting any funding for that. So.
Just our E&L population has grown tremendously. I mean, having to hire those teachers, but then not giving us more money to do that and expect that we have to tax our community more, where this is something that is being required by the state. They should be helping us fund those programs.
Michelle, was that on the unfunded mandates, sort of some of the E&L, right? Because we handed Doug the PowerPoint, showed him $34 million plus in unfunded mandates. So this is a challenge.
And
Imagine
after-
what we can do with $34 million extra a year, right?
And after our meeting yesterday with Doug, he wouldn't come out and say it, but it was alluded to the fact that we won't even have the title grants for the NL programs next year.
So there's some concerns at the state level. So that's why I said before, we're in for a very tough budget season. So, Meredith.
Michelle, I should have asked Ross, but it didn't come to my mind at the time. Maybe you can pass this information on to him, and I don't know if it's something he can do. But my own personal observation is one of our schools with our highest population is actually the area is like the median income, the median house price is lower than the school that has the least enrollment. That's almost one of our higher. So in my opinion, we're being judged on a large school district where we have 15 schools and we have such diversity that we have really low income and really high income. And then it meets someplace in the middle, which is not really great, giving a great picture of this district. And that's why we do lose out on a lot of things. Unfortunately, that happens to be the formula that the state does. But if he could include each school, each elementary, middle, and high school, if he can include like the average income and the average house price, it will help us get a little bit more of a hold on what's going on in our district. And maybe that's information that we can go back and ask for them to work with a little bit differently. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on diversity? Okay. Legislative committee, Steph? A lot of activity there, right?
Yeah. Every single thing you guys just spoke about, we spoke about in the legislative committee. So one of the other concerning things is that we might have issues with Medicaid being cut, which is then going to affect the governor's budget, which then may affect the school district budget. So that's again going into our revenue issue, which is scary. So we have a lot of worries as a legislative committee. So I'm going to read them off. We need to, our next meeting I asked to be in person. So I'm waiting for everybody to get back to us to see their availability. If need be, I would do a Zoom in addition so that they could be participating if they weren't planning on coming in. But we have unfunded mandates, UPK grant abilities, and then funding formulas for that as well. Possibly having a political lobby section of people to go and speak with our elected officials on what the district wants us to address. A trip to Albany, and then the school security bill. The combined wealth ratio thing we talk about all the time because it is bumping us into a situation where we're getting less funding if we compare ourselves to other school districts that are similar to us. We're getting so much less funding. So I need to ask, and again, we've had this discussion, what are we going to focus on? And is the board okay with us making splinter subcommittees in the legislative committee to be more effective so that we can tackle all these issues?
Yeah, I think that's why we put more people on the legislative committee, so we could have multiple swim lanes, right? We've got the security issue, we got the UPK, we've got unfunded mandates. So I think, see if you can get somebody
We
to lead
okay
each one
with
of those.
having
I think
a
Paul's willing to
political
take
lobby?
all of them.
He's who I'm thinking of for everything. No, but
yeah, I think divide it up into groups and then divide and conquer.
and we're
that's the way it's
okay
gotta be done.
with the political part of it, because we're going to. I think meeting with our elected officials is really important. But there's also other elected officials that are doing legislation that will impact Sachem, and they don't necessarily live here. So is that an okay thing for us to start doing? It's new for our legislative committee.
I personally, in terms of with the elected officials, if it's going to be about school business, I would personally rather our board members and cabinet. There could be people that come with you, but I would still like the like, you know what I'm saying? So if they're gonna go meet with Doug, like I still think that a liaison from the board.
It wouldn't be meeting. It would be more reaching out about policies that they have that we could possibly benefit and possibly support as a school district. So like, for example, if one is making a UPK grant funding or reformulation, we would contact that elected official and say, how can we help you support this so that it'll pass because we benefit from it? It wouldn't necessarily be school district. We wouldn't be going out to them asking for school district stuff. We would be looking for stuff that they are working on that would help us.
So Steph, I think the next legislative meeting, you guys have to really now start,
honing in
on what are the areas you're going to focus on, because then we invited Doug to come to that meeting after, right? And he'll address it and we can kind of share all that with him, right?
Yeah.
So,
He mentioned that he's also working with another school district, so we can alternate. We could also fill him in. He was busy for the month of October, so I hope, and I'm hoping Meredith is okay with this, that we can meet even a little bit more often than once a month, because this list is tough. So if we did one in-person meeting, maybe one Zoom. I know.
Don't kill me, Tom, but yeah.
I'm sorry, but
yeah, look, I'll leave it to you guys. You have the charges.
we have a
Divide it
lot
up
of
and-
charges. That's what I'm concerned about. So I want to
Well,
make sure
narrow
we're
it down
working-
to, narrow it down. That's why
Right.
we put extra people
They're
on this
so
committee.
important.
We do have a lot of people on the committee, but for what we have, we don't have a lot. So I think,
Right.
like I keep saying, that I think we really need to hone in on,
I think the
like
next meeting,
UPK right
yeah.
now. It's super important, but we have a hold on it at least for a year. We have a Band-Aid on it right now. So maybe like unfunded mandates are
That's key.
so much more money than what our deficit is. If we didn't have unfunded mandates, we wouldn't have a deficit. We'd have small classroom sizes. We wouldn't have worried this year about the classroom sizes because we would have said, oh, we're on the bubble. We have the money to be able to pop that bubble. No problem. If we didn't have unfunded mandates, we would not be in a hole.
My
So I think
suggestion
that's
on-
like,
yeah, unfunded mandates, I would almost take that and split it up. I think you have more, you got state and federal. I would stay away from the federal, maybe short term, focus on the state. And then federal is, a lot going on in Washington these days, right? So focus on the state. I mean, we may have more control over that, right? So.
I agree.
Okay.
So
What
Stephanie,
else?
to speak to what you, I'm fine with that, with what you spoke
Okay.
of before.
All right.
Yeah.
And then obviously there's going to be, we want to do a trip to Albany. So that's going to cost a lot of manpower.
Just
So-
figure out what you want to say and who you're going to visit. And
We have
maybe-
our ideas. We have
Okay.
the unfunded mandates. We have the UPK grant and funding, because there is a lot of money there that we found as a committee that might be accessible. So we want to advocate for that. And that's what's going to contact with elected officials. That will determine who we're meeting with in Albany, because we're going to make those office visits. So, and again, I'm going to defer to somebody sitting in the audience. This person has so much experience doing that, that if he's the one reaching out, because he knows how to do it. I'm not a lobbyer. So putting me in that position is not as effective as putting one of our committee or multiple people in our committee, because there's other people that have this experience and they stepped up for this reason. So
Okay, Mike? Oh, Jess, and then Mike.
Just something that Doug Smith had said yesterday is if we could work with, other stakeholders such as the PTA. So now that we do have official board PTA liaisons, is the board okay with me, presenting the charges with the PTA council for the legislative committee, just again to see if they're able to do some advocacy efforts from their end. So that's okay. So Stephanie, we could partner maybe after you guys have a better control of what the focuses are, we could hopefully work with the council.
If you want to even, because I'm probably setting the Zoom up, if you want to join in on the next meeting, I'll give you that info.
Send me the
too.
link.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. Mike?
Yeah, I was just going to bring up the UPK thing again. I don't think it's a far-fetched to say that if that allocation is not changed during this legislative session, there's a high likelihood Sachem will not have UPK.
We made that abundantly clear to our elected official, multiple meetings now. He actually had somebody on a call. He was with the state ed budget, and we shared the concern with him. He was taking some notes. There's an action item, I think, on something called an expansion grant, which is closed, but we made it clear to him that, we're not in a position to run a UPK program if we don't get that application changed.
I certainly don't want to take any money out of the general fund to do it.
Right.
But the urgency becomes now we're going to start getting into budgeting, right? And that's a line item. So that line item,
Yeah, the answer we got back yesterday, pretty much from the budget guy, was, we won't know anything until the end of this year, early January, which is we're going to be right up against the wall again, like we always are. And major concern, Mike.
Well, the only thing we might have going for us, it's going to be an election year, right?
Who knows?
So
we've invited the governor to come down and tour Sachem, right? And
yeah, how'd
spend
that
some
go,
time.
Patty? Waiting to hear.
We're waiting to hear.
Yeah, we'll be waiting.
So we're trying to work all the different angles to show what we're providing to our community.
I just want the community to know that we're already talking about this. This is, we're in October. We've talked about, we had Brent here today. We talked about things that we were doing well, things we weren't, the things that aren't going so well. We're talking to Russ, our demographer, about our district concerns about school closures and redistricting. And now we're talking about UPK, and it's only October. So when the time comes and, we have to make some hard decisions, let's remind the community that we're already talking about these things.
So for the last couple of years, there's been a few of us repeating this message constantly. So it hasn't changed. It's only getting worse. Okay. Anything else, guys? Okay. Closing public comment, Allison. Okay. Section 13, old business. Anything to discuss tonight, old business wise? I don't think so. All right. Okay. And board discussion items, we've got nothing for tonight. Anything for future discussion items? Let's go Meredith and then Mike.
So I have two things. While we were in the diversity and we're talking about, people's experiences and things, now that I am the mom of 3 alumni who are very, very different from each other, I wish I had known X, Y, and Z. Is there a way that we could make a committee, and it doesn't have to be huge and it doesn't have to meet, tons of times, but could we make a committee that was kind of like a hindsight is 2020 committee that could, maybe parents whose kids have gotten out of elementary, parents whose kids have gotten out of middle, parents whose kids have gotten out of high school, and even maybe if the kids themselves wanted to give us a little feedback, things that could help. Like I'll be the first person to admit, my youngest son is the only person in our entire household to ever go to college. I did not know that I had to fill out FAFSA every single year. I thought I filled it out the first year and all that was great. And then, I didn't get anything from them. So I just figured, I never have to do it again. No, you have to do it every year. So, and it's due in like May. So, here I am in, mom mode thinking I have August or whatever. No, May, it has to be done for the next school year. These are things that you don't know until you don't know.
We do financial aid night through our guidance
We
department
do.
every single year.
No, we do. Absolutely.
And orientation. We do state college now night.
And I
We-
did
we
tune
are
in, but
doing all
it was
that.
there was an issue that night, and I'm sure that I'm not the only person that has had these issues. So I'm thinking just to get more information, I think it's going to be better now that we have a different person in place to get our information out. But I just think that if we could have some type of a hindsight thing, where people could give their input, Doesn't have to be a specific.
My
community.
Isn't that
only
St. John's? I don't
concern
know.
is we are doing all these nights and nobody comes. So we
Yeah.
can
Yeah.
plan another night. Nobody.
You do these
comes.
workshops at the high school, you get 10 people showing
No,
up.
I know. I've
The
been
information's out there. We're publishing
I've been
it,
one of
right? So-
very few people in some of these, and I've actually tuned into other ones, but it's.
Listen,
I know,
if
it's
the board
difficult.
wants to discuss it, I don't know who wants to form another committee because I'm trying to reduce committees.
It might not need to be a board committee. Maybe it could be like an alumni club or something.
Get the Alumni Association. right? Maybe we do
Something, but
like that,
you know, something.
We
I
have
get
that
what she's
right
saying
here.
because it's big in the special needs world too, where parents talk and they find out stuff after the fact or
Right.
3 years later, and they're like, "Oh my God, my kid could want to do that." So I'm constantly that mom in the special needs world sharing things over and over and over again. So I get what she's saying because especially if it's your first time going through something, it's like
Right.
a big brother, big sister type thing. Like, you know, you help
Or maybe
me
an
out.
exit
I don't know if it
survey
doesn't
of
need to be a
sorts,
board
you
committee.
know.
That's the question. It could be a parent. I don't know,
Or-
but
or
I would
maybe
be
an
into
exit
doing
survey,
it. But it
maybe.
might.
I
It
don't know.
doesn't
I don't think
necessarily
I don't
have to
think
be
I'm authorized to shut anything down. So if the board wants to do this, we can have that discussion. But I'd like, if you guys are suggesting it, come with a plan. I don't, we could take a
here.
leaning now if the
I
board
don't
wants
think
to
it needs to
entertain
be a
it.
board committee. I think we could talk outside.
Yeah, maybe
Oh,
the PTA, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea. PTA thing.
And then my second thing that I wanted to bring up is October is, we all know it's breast cancer awareness. Everybody knows that. But what a lot of people don't know is it's also domestic violence awareness. And that's why I have purple on tonight. Something that was pretty scary for me, I've heard about domestic violence and, different things over the years. And unfortunately, a very good friend of mine lost her daughter to domestic violence. But one thing that she shared with me is that 1 in 12 high school students will have been in an abusive relationship by the time they graduate high school. That's a huge, scary statistic. And this mom that we all know, Bevan, she has developed a program and she has already gone to other schools to talk. And I was hoping that we could have her here. I know that we brought it up at one point and then it kind of didn't grab wings. But the fact that 1 in 12 of our students will be in a relationship like that is mind-boggling to me that any children would ever be in a relationship like that. But I really think it's something that's super important that we need to talk. We talk about vaping, we talk about car crashes, we talk about texting and driving and all of that. This is just as important. And I think that it's one of those things that a lot of kids are afraid to discuss with their peers.
Yeah, I'll look to Patty maybe just to kind of take that offline and have that discussion and see if it's something
Absolutely.
to bring in-house, but yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mary. Any other future discussion items? Mike?
I don't know if this is a future discussion item or how we should approach it, but I think it needs some clarification. So tonight, Michelle, we passed a resolution to establish the tax levy, right? And I know you mention this every time we go through the budget season that once we do that, that's just a dollar figure, and that spans 3 different towns, and they have different equalization rates. So I think I remember seeing in the packet that you had a feel for what this is going to result in for people's taxes. I don't know if we want to present that in some way, or you just want to tell people what it looks like it's going to be. But I want people to see the dichotomy of what happens across these 3 different towns, particularly for those of us in Brookhaven. But
So when we prepared the budget and it was adopted last year, we were looking at an average tax rate of roughly 2.2%. But now that the equalization rates have come out and we don't have
we
any
don't
control.
set those, right?
So the towns are responsible for the assessed values and New York State is responsible for the equalization rates. Now that those equalization rates have come out, it has varying effects across the towns. So we're looking at, based on the school portion of the tax bill only, not the total tax bill, it looks like the town of Brookhaven residents will see roughly a 3.36% increase in their taxes. There will be a slight decrease in the town of Islip, 0.44%, and the residents in the town of Smithtown will see an increase of roughly 1.01% in the school portion of their taxes. That's strictly based off of the equalization
Right.
rates and the
I
assessed
want people to
values.
understand. So the people in Brookhaven, when they see that, they're going to ask, why isn't it only 2.2%? That's not us controlling that. That's controlled by the town.
Right. And when the board adopts a budget and the budget gets voted on, we set a levy number. Like you
Right.
said, it's a dollar amount.
Dollar amount.
The days of setting a tax rate in the district ended with the tax levy cap.
Right. Yeah. So look how happy I just made Sabrina. You must live in the town of Islip, right? Yeah.
No, Mike, thanks for bringing that up. Yeah, thanks for bringing it up. And I know we talk
Anybody else
about
live in
that.
Brookhaven? Am I the only? Thank God.
Yeah.
Okay.
We talk about that every budget season, right?
Right,
So it's
every-
only a number. The towns really kind of come up with
Correct.
that. All right.
I just
Hey,
want.
I've got
I think this is a
two
glaring
things-
example.
I've got two things for future discussion items, and it really, I think it's around the taxes, right? I think, Michelle, you're waiting for an answer from the board around the volunteer firefighter and ambulance worker exemptions, as well as the senior citizen and people with disabilities and limited income exemptions. I think the board wanted to have a discussion on that, so maybe next board meeting, Allison, we can have that as a discussion item, okay? I think that's it for now that we can, yeah, okay. Okay. Anything else? Okay. Okay, need a motion to go into exec session for the purpose of discussing personnel issues. Have a motion, please. Motion by Steph, second by Dennis. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Good night, everybody. Thank you very much. Get home safe.